Do you remember robots? Because I do, and nobody else does, and I feel like I'm going crazy. And just like that, we've established the parasocial connection. So let's keep going, shall we? So the other day I was talking to my friend, and by talking to my friend, I mean yelling at my friend about one of my favorite discussion topics, why capitalism is ruining our lives. And they took a break from the onslaught of words I was throwing at them, and they looked me dead in the eyes, and they said, "Have you always been like this?" With an air of confusion and also concern. I took a moment, and I said, "I don't know." However, I did watch Robots in 2005 when I was a mere 4 years old, and I think that had a lot to do with the way I am today. And to my surprise, they were not aware of the movie I was talking about. So, our previously heated discussion turned tail and went to me yelling at them now about why Robots 2005 is such an impeccable fucking movie. Robots 2005 is remarkable for many reasons, but the first of which you'll notice is right on the tin. This cast is stacked. Allow me to elaborate. Ewan McGregor, Amanda Bynes, Stanley Tucci, Mel Brooks, Jennifer Coolidge, Halle Berry, and most importantly, Robin Williams. Hallowed be his name. This movie is a who's who of Hollywood in 2005, and no one's talking about it. Also, it was made by Blue Sky Studios, and if you don't know Blue Sky Studios, you'll definitely know their other movies, such as the Ice Age Saga, the Rio Duology, or their most recent movie, Spies in Disguise, which I never saw because it looked pretty bad, and I don't know why I chose to end on that one. But the reason this movie is so important to me is due to the works of a little-known German political philosopher by the name of Karl Marx, and you'll see, I'm a bit of a fan. So armed with my overabundance of knowledge and unnecessary topics, I'm gonna take you on the journey of Rodney Copperbottom, and who knows, maybe you'll be picking up the hammer and sickle by the end of it too. Luckily though, I was not alone in this endeavor. Though I am the type to watch movies alone in my room in the dark, I enlisted the help of my good friend Seth, who you might recognize from some of my other videos.
Okay, if this is gonna be in it, I don't know this video essay. So they were just like, let's watch Robots.
The movie opens in Rivet Town, a small town in America, where Herb Copperbottom, the father of our eventual protagonist, is announcing to God and everyone that he's about to be a father.
I'm gonna be a dad!
I hate to make this comparison, I really, really do, but it's kind of like the Emoji Movie when they give you a little walkthrough of Textopolis. Why do I know the name of the town in the Emoji Movie? And they introduce you to all the little wacky characters. It's the type of thing that's been done to death in movies, and it's a tried and true way to introduce your character and contextualize the world around them via their relationship to each other. They also do it in Monsters, Inc. now that I think about it. That would have been a much better example. Then the movie does a heel turn and shows us the best sex montage ever put to film. I'm not kidding.
I'm here!
Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. You missed the delivery.
But it's okay. Making the baby's the fun part.
That's right. The best sex montage in film history is in a children's movie from 2005, and you can fucking quote me on it.
What's that extra piece?
Oh no, they always put in an extra... We did want a boy, right?
So after a solid dick joke, the movie introduces us to the main character, Rodney Copperbottom, and shows us two scenes that will set up very important themes for the remainder of the film. The first scene in which Rodney, our main character, speaks is the scene in which he gets his big boy parts, and don't think too much about that phrase, please, I beg you, just move along. Here, we find out that the Copperbottoms are poor. Rodney's parents are ashamed to admit that they don't have the money to buy him new parts, so he has to settle for hand-me-downs that are too big for him. Right away, the movie establishes the idea of wealth, and more importantly, the lack of it.
These are your 12-year-old parts. They're...
Hand-me-downs. I know, Dad. I don't mind.
They are from your cousin, Veronica.
You know how popular she is.
This is the first time that they're going to bring up cross-dressing. It will come up again.
Right after that, we're introduced to Big Weld. Big Weld is the shit, and not only is he the shit, he's the embodiment of a sort of post-war American dream idealism, claiming that
whether a bot is made of new parts, old parts, or spare parts, you can shine no matter what you're made of.
He's talking to me, Dad.
He sure is, son. He sure is.
But Zephyr, I hear you asking, why would you say that this movie has such a strong anti-capitalist message when Big Weld is so American dream-coded? Well, that's because the movie pulls a fast one on you. You see the retrofuturism and the Bioshock infinite-ass aesthetic of this movie, and you think to yourself, wow, this movie's about picking yourself up by your bootstraps and working till you're past retirement age. But you're wrong, and stupid, and dumb, and you lack media literacy, me at 4 years old, okay? Because right after that, Big Weld drops the real message of the movie.
See a need, fill a need.
See a need, fill a need. Does that sound familiar to you? Because it sounds familiar to me. It sounds a lot like...
from each according to his ability to each according to his need. Now this is Capital, and it's not in Capital that Marx says that. He says that in Critique of the Gotha program, but I digress. I'm going to be here all day. And then, to further distance itself from the American dream angle, Rodney decides to become an inventor himself and take up Bigwell's mantra to fill the needs of those closest to him. What is the need that Rodney tries to fill? Well, Rodney's dad is the person that actually did pick himself up by his bootstraps, and he's working himself to the bone, or to the steel, I guess, to earn what little money he can to keep his family afloat on a dishwasher's salary. So what is the solution Rodney comes up with? Easy. He creates life.
Or is that like his little homunculus?
That's his little homunculus, for sure. And can I just take a pause here for a second to discuss this? Because the movie doesn't, okay? The movie does not talk about this ever again. Why? The movie yada yadas the fact that Rodney Copperbottom created life and then moves on. The only other time we've seen life be made in this movie is through the intervention of a sophisticated and organized company using, assumingly, bleeding edge technology. And Rodney Copperbottom creates life in a cave with a box of scraps. Why is nobody talking about this? Well, fuck it. If the movie won't dwell on it, I guess I won't dwell on it either. So Rodney uses his little homunculus to assist his father while he's working himself to the bone at work. Already a comrade, Rodney Copperbottom is using his gift to benefit the proletariat. Amen.
Oh, is he gonna work his dad out of a job?
This 100% would get his dad fired because he wouldn't need to pay him. But what would you pay that thing compared to what you pay Mr. Copperbottom? How is that?
Now we're digging
ranking
into classes.
Yeah, there's a caste system here. Like, that is life. We've agreed that that is life. It's being treated as if it were a dog.
Yeah, well, you're either a robot that goes wee hee, or you're a robot that says words.
In this bitch of a world, you're either a robot that says wee hee.
Mr. Gunk, please, you're making it nervous.
So there's a few kinks to work out, but instead of doing a revision and potentially releasing a beta model, Rodney decides to make a split decision and just leave that night for Robot City. He leaves a note and heads for the train station, leading to a very touching scene with Herb being recruited by his wife to talk some sense into his son. But he doesn't do that. You see, Herb had dreams, just like his son did, and I'll let him explain it.
One ticket for Robot City.
Where are you going?
Not me. Him.
But...
Rodney, did you know that when I was your age, I wanted to be a musician? I played pretty well, too, but my dad was worried that I wouldn't be able to make a living, so I got refitted to be a dishwasher. Now, I'm not complaining, but I've always said to myself, if I could do it over again, I would follow my dream.
So, instead of telling Rodney to stay, Herb lets Rodney go. He tells him he can't live his life with regrets, and he should chase his dream of being an inventor in Robot City. And, like any good father, Herb wants Rodney to lead the life he wished he could have lived himself.
Let's go Stanley Tucci. Give it up for the Tooch!
Now, Rodney enters into a chapter of his life that many of us know all too well in this day and age. Striking out on your own with nothing but the pennies in your pocket and a dream. Rodney knows his parents will always be there for him, but he has to prove to the world, and more importantly to himself, that he can achieve the lofty goals he sets for himself. And if you've ever had a loved one that idolized New York City for way too long and then finally comes there for the first time, you know what happens next.
Wow. Excuse me, I wonder if you... Gave it the office. I wonder if you... Oh.
It's at this point that we pivot and get introduced to the main villain of this movie, Ratchet, and I'll let him explain his perspective.
My goodness, what a remarkable legacy. Concern for the common robot. You don't come across old-fashioned values like that anymore, friends. And for good reason. There's no money in it!
Ratchet's plan is to maximize profits by pushing people to purchase overpriced upgrades through the discontinuing of much-needed spare parts, something that will have dire ramifications on the robots we'll come to meet later. That sentence was hard as shit. Why did I write that?
I think it's really interesting that they made him a shark. He's got the fucking shark business for him. I think that's really interesting.
Upgrades, people, upgrades. That's how we make the dough. Now, if we're telling robots that no matter what they're made of, they're fine, how can we expect them to feel crummy enough about themselves to buy our upgrades and make themselves look better? Therefore, I've come up with a new slogan. Why be you when you can be new?
they're clearly going for like a beauty industry sort of thing here. But we'll see that this extends to more than just the beauty industry and making people feel like shit so they buy their products. It has actual like dire implications that they'll touch on later.
I'm just wondering, why would robots buy new upgrades if parts are so much cheaper?
Oh, right. Well, that's easy, because as of today, we are no longer making spare parts.
Do you know what I call robots who can't afford upgrades?
Scrap metal.
In a desperate attempt to meet Big Weld, Rodney breaks into a board meeting where he doesn't meet his hero but is promptly thrown out by Ratchet. This is a bit of a side tangent that I will come back to, but the only time we ever see police is at Big Weld Industries, which implies a sort of private police force owned and operated by the largest corporation in the world, and you don't need me to tell you that that's not good.
Furthermore, there is no mention of government. The highest authority that we see is whoever's sitting in the big chair at Big Weld Industries.
But that's kind of how it works.
It is kind of how it works. The person who has the most money makes the laws.
This is also where we meet Cappy, who's a sexy robot we know nothing about, but we know she'll become important later because
this follows anime rules. You can tell that she's going to be important because she's differently designed from everyone else.
After Rodney gets thrown out, he meets Bender, played by the incomparable Robin Williams, and he ran into him prior in the movie, but this is the first time we really get to meet the character, and it's amazing. Robin Williams is having so much fun with this character, and you can really tell it's an absolute delight. So much so that trying to summarize any scene that Bender is in feels like a bit of a disservice. So I'm just going to give you the broad strokes and encourage you to watch the movie because it's just peak Robin Williams. It's fantastic. Bender tries to mug Rodney the first time they officially meet, and in the altercation, Bender loses his head. Following his would-be assailant after his head, Rodney meets the rest of Fender's gang of outmodes, including his sister Piper, as well as Crank, Lug, and Diesel. Now, I really love to look at these robots, especially in comparison with Rodney, and I'll let past me explain why.
Because obviously, like, Rodney and his family are white-coated. He's still lower class, like, by no means is Rodney, like, the elite. But he's obviously not at the same caste level of someone like Fender.
Yeah, he's like visibly cleaner than everyone.
All of these characters live together at Aunt Fanny's house, and she's important because she's played by Jennifer Coolidge and has a really big ass. That's it. That's her whole character. Just ass. Fart jokes and all.
Hey kids, get a load of this!
This awakens something in some fucking people.
Excuse me.
Lady, please.
I am doing a bit of a disservice to Aunt Fanny because she takes in these robots with seemingly nowhere else to go and lets them live with her seemingly for free. The problem is the film also doesn't respect her enough for doing this and instead just makes her the butt of every joke. Pun absolutely intended.
Well, what happened to your friend?
He's been rear-ended.
God, I wish that were me. Getting back to the main story, Fender needs to get his head fixed, so he goes to a parts shop and realizes that the parts for his model are no longer being made. And that is a death sentence.
Well, when we had your parts, they were on sale!
Oh, could this happen to me? I'm practically a kid.
Jeez, look. Pull yourself together. All you need is an upgrade.
I can't afford that fancy stuff. All I need is one stinking neck joint.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the crux of this entire fucking movie. Not only is it the fucking beauty and cosmetic industry making people feel inferior, like, aesthetically, it is the fact that if they are injured and they are outmoded, they cannot afford healthcare. It is privatized healthcare. They need upgrades to live, or part replacements simply to live. And they made the prices of these upgrades that are necessary so outmodedly unaffordable and discontinued parts that people need to fucking live. This is the crux. This is the crux of this entire fucking movie, and it's crazy to me that this has just flown under the radar for fucking years.
Yeah, look where we're at now.
Exactly. Almost 20 years later, almost 2 decades later, we have not heeded the message of this movie.
Not only that, to add insult to injury, Fender is canonically an immigrant.
We haven't been properly introduced. I'm Fender. We used to be Bumper, but had to change it when we came into the country.
They're immigrants?
Yeah.
They're fucking immigrants that have been shoved into the poor, probably redlined sections of town, and they can't afford healthcare. Oh my god!
Sorry, pal. It's either Upgrade or the Chop Shop for you.
The Chop Shop!
It's literally...
That's my iPhone right now.
It's literally either spend money you don't have and go into debt, or die. Does that sound like anywhere else? It sounds like here.
Now the Chop Shop. Let's talk about that, shall we?
Get ready for the hardest song in the fucking movie.
Ratchet, in what is possibly the most beautiful social commentary of this movie, is a Nepo baby, working in cahoots with his mother, Madame Gasket, who is the Baroness of the Chop Shop.
Look who's here.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, sweetie. How's my boy?
Great! I did just what you told me. No more spare parts. In a couple of weeks, all those broken down losers out there are gonna be nothing but scrap metal. You will be up to your bloomers in broken elbow junk!
The Chop Shop is where all the trash in Robot City is sent to be melted down and repurposed in this all-metal society. The problem is that this trash consists of, quite often, actual living robots. Not only that, there are street sweepers, which are robots that patrol the streets and pick up trash, including these living, outmoded robots, and bring them to the Chop Shop to be melted down and systematically murdered.
Dude, this feels like clan activity.
Yeah.
They're hunting the undesirables and bringing them to be systematically murdered.
Big Weld Industries openly utilizes a task force for the systemic rounding up and murdering of robots deemed to be outmoded because they cannot afford upgrades. But this might not be Big Weld Industries, I hear you saying. Well, consider this. Ratchet uses funds from Big Weld Industries to manufacture a new model of Street Sweeper, which is meant to be more deadly and ruthlessly efficient. So what is the solution? Rodney is the solution. Rodney fixes Fender without using any spare parts because he's able to create life from a coffee pot, so why not? And word about this travels pretty damn fast. Hundreds of robots travel from all over the city to be fixed by Rodney, something that Ratchet and Madame Gasket despise, as anyone would be able to guess.
Oh, so what if one crazy fanatic repairs a few outmodes? Who cares?
Think. Use those brains I stole for you. Today it's one. What about tomorrow when everybody gets the idea this is okay? We can fix ourselves. We don't need upgrades. We want Big Weld. Then what happens to you?
There is something to be said about the fear, I mean, because capitalism, as we all know, its power is based on people's perception, and she basically lays that out. What happens when people realize they don't fucking need you anymore?
In between fixing every bot with a screw loose, Rodney decides that the best way to get Big Weld's attention is to appeal to him at the annual Big Weld Ball, so he and Fender sneak in dressed as foreign diplomats. When they're found out, Ratchet orders the police to kill Rodney. And think about that for a second.
Take him for a drive and bring me back his exact weight in paper clips.
Think about the implications of the CEO of the largest corporation being able to order the extrajudicial killing of a civilian in broad daylight, and he would have gotten away with it too if Cappy didn't save them because she has a crush on Rodney for some reason.
I'll escort him out.
You don't want to look bad in front of your people, do you?
Good point.
And when I get back, I'll show you my casual, fun-loving side. Get moving!
What? What are you doing?
Saving your life.
This movie doesn't write women very well, okay? I'll admit it, it's not perfect. Of the 4 named women, one of them is the main character's mother, 2 of them have a crush on the main character, and the 4th one is just ass. That's their entire character. It's not great, I'll admit it. But the more time we spend thinking about that, the less time we're spending thinking about the fact that Ratchet can order the extrajudicial killing of a civilian as the CEO of the largest company. He's judge, jury, and executioner. This is not okay! Why is nobody talking about this? So Cappy, Rodney, and Fender have to fight their way out of the ball, and Cappy tells Rodney to get on the next train home. You know, because Ratchet's gonna kill him, because he has the legal right to do that. Meanwhile, Fender gets captured, taken to the chop shop, and gets bottom surgery. I'm not fucking kidding. Fender's legs detach from his body on a conveyor belt to an incinerator, and he grabs the nearest pair of legs he can find. The gag is unveiled when it's revealed the legs are a skirt, and the gag is, haha, he's a guy, he shouldn't wear a skirt. But the movie doesn't fucking walk it back. He stays wearing female parts for the rest of the movie, right up to the very end. And I'm skipping ahead of myself, but later in the movie he has a fucking lip sync dance that feels ripped right out of Drag Race. Fender. More like gender, because this robot is trans as hell and nobody can tell me otherwise, okay? And for 2005, it could have been handled so much worse. So much worse. Most notably because nobody ever makes fun of it. Nobody gives Fender shit for it. Nobody makes a joke. It's treated as perfectly normal. It's never dwelled upon. The closest thing we get to a joke is when Piper sees Fender, she says,
I have a sister! An ugly sister.
And she moves right along! She accepts it! No questions asked! This is a pro-trans message in a 2005 children's movie, and I, for one, am fucking jazzed. This movie rules. What was I talking about? Oh, right, Rodney. Rodney makes his way to Big Weld's lab/house. It's kind of unclear, and he sees the remnants of this once great bastion of progress. And there's something I want to highlight here.
Nice one of you.
Football!
A big symbol of Big Weld's character is the domino, and it's played for spectacle both here and other places, but especially in this sequence. There's a big domino chain that's honestly really impressive looking for 2005 computer animation, but the domino itself is such a huge symbol of change that I believe was intentional.
The domino is another image of revolution, right?
One domino is all you need to start a massive chain reaction. Just like one person, Rodney is all you need to start a massive revolution. They even put a guillotine into this sequence.
Ah, yes. The image of the guillotine. The tool of the revolution, yeah.
This movie is talking about revolution, and it's hiding it in plain sight. It's fucking brilliant. Awoken from his slumber by the excitement of the dominoes, Big Weld appears in front of the two robots, and despite how far he's fallen, his reputation still precedes him. In a last-ditch effort, Rodney begs Big Weld to come back. He appeals to him and how he inspired him as a child, and he reminds him that this isn't something the Big Weld he grew up idolizing would allow to have happen. But Big Weld is too scared to take action, and he kicks him out so he can get back to his dominoes. It's a legitimately heartbreaking scene because you can see that Big Weld knows what Rodney's saying is right, but the strength of Ratchet, whatever he's using to keep Big Weld down, whether it be fear, intimidation, or otherwise, overcomes the guilt that he has clearly on his face, and he resigns himself to the fear or intimidation that is keeping him silent. And it's really, really sad.
He put that last piece too far to make any change.
He's too far away to make any change. Fuck, this movie's so good. Ah!
And without Big Weld's support, Rodney gives up. He decides to get on the next train back to Rivettown and go be with his father, who doesn't have much time left because, like so many other bots, the parts he needs are no longer being made.
I'm really sorry I let you down. No. You could never let me down, Rodney.
That's unrealistic, because dads don't say that.
Cappy takes him to the train station, the gang comes to wish him goodbye, they meet the new trans Fender, and that's it. But at the last moment, Big Weld shows up. He stops Rodney from getting on the train, he tells him that he's right, and he tells him that he convinced him to do what's right.
If we don't do something about Ratchet, no one will.
Amen! Amen!
He convinced him to take the fight to Ratchet, and he needs to be back on top. But Big Weld can only be back on top with Rodney's help.
Why are you going to help us?
Oh, because I want to grow up to be like you.
That line still gives me chills. So the gang hightails it to Big Weld Industries as a unified front. Now, for some reason, they allow Big Weld to go see Ratchet alone, and that turns out about as well as you think it would.
Oh my gosh, I'm as crazy as my mother.
Why didn't they all just go up together?
Luckily, Rodney shows up just in time and is able to help Big Weld escape, only to be pursued by the police. An unfortunate side effect of Big Weld being bludgeoned in the head is that your brain might not work too well afterwards.
Are you okay?
I'm the prettiest girl at the Harvest Moon Ball.
I'll take that as a no.
So Rodney has to perform brain surgery on Big Weld on the highway as they attempt to shake the police. And just as Rodney gets him back in fighting shape, something much worse happens. Y'all ready for a third act fight scene? So Big Weld gets captured by Madame Gasket and is on his way to get incinerated. I'm not sure if this is as bureaucratically evil as Ratchet's actions, but it's definitely straight up murder, so it's still pretty fucked up. To no one's surprise, Rodney and the gang show up to thwart Gasket's attempted murder. Unknown to the gang, though, is that Gasket has a loyal legion of goons ready to fight and die for her, and I can't even fault them for not knowing that, because why would she have them? She can 100% melt down these robots for scrap and build inanimate robots to do the exact same jobs that they would do? Like, what? She already keeps them in horrible living and working conditions, so it begs the question why she goes through the hassle of keeping them around at all.
All right, break time. All right, break time's over. Chop, chop.
Now, the Doyleist explanation is that the writers wanted to do a metaphor of pre-unionization factory working, and while that's a valiant thing to do, the metaphor kind of falls apart when you consider the fact that these robots are ready to fight and die for her. The closest thing that I can think of in a like-minded media is Scar and the hyenas, but the hyenas got food from Scar when they were starving. What do these robots get out of Gasket that they're willing to fight and die? Oh my god, they're scabs. This movie's fucking brilliant. They're fucking scabs. Have you ever read The Grapes of Wrath? Because I've read The Grapes of Wrath, and I'm telling you, don't read The Grapes of Wrath. It's very boring. There's an entire chapter that's just about a turtle crossing the road. However, The Grapes of Wrath is about two things. It's about workers scouring the country for any sort of labor following the Great Depression, and it's about breastfeeding. That's unrelated, but the first part is related. The reason the characters in Grapes of Wrath are living in squalor, searching the country for labor, is because of scabs. Scabs are willing to work for little to nothing. They are okay with being exploited by the powers that be. A big part of the Grapes of Wrath is that there always seems to be someone with less dignity than you. Someone who has had more dignity taken away by the powers that be and is willing to be exploited for more and more. Even though they know that if they work for as little as they are being offered, the Overton window will be pushed and companies will be allowed to push the envelope more and more and more and exploit workers more and more and more. And in the face of death, Madam Gasket might be the only chance you have for any sort of life at all in Robot City if you are sufficiently outmoded. These robots are so low on the caste system of Robot City that they might see that this is the only option they have to survive. They might not think revolution is an option for them at all. So of course, feeling cornered, they do the only thing they can. They fight and die for Madam Gasket, which is the only opportunity they see they have. So what more can the gang do? They are in the face of incredibly overwhelming odds. The more people that get outmoded, the more people are either sent to death or sent to work for Madam Gasket. There's no winning. There's no way that the 6 of them can possibly hope to overcome this army that Gasket has of goons. Until...
Did I miss the butt whooping?
No. Matter of fact, you're a little bit early.
Vive la fucking resistance, bitch. All the robots that Rodney fixed, everyone that would have died without him, and everyone that just wants to join the fucking cause, rises up and joins Rodney's rebellion, and it's fucking sick. This is one of the most creative fight scenes I've ever seen. If this isn't gonna get you to take up arms against your capitalist overlords, I don't know what will. To paraphrase Thomas Jefferson, the tree of liberty must be refreshed with the oil of tyrants. And that's precisely what's happening. Gasket is incinerated, and Ratchet is stripped of his glamour and strung up as a spectacle for all to see.
My upgrades!
He becomes a monument to his own avarice, a spectacle, a cautionary tale that the greed of the bourgeois will never go unpunished, so long as there are those who are willing to rise up and resist it. And that about wraps things up. Bigweld is back on top, and together with Rodney, his newly named heir to the company, the two continue the mission they set off on together, inventing new creations for the betterment of robot kind and providing free healthcare and upgrades to every bot in need, starting with Rodney's father. The man who, without his sacrifice and without his blessing, Rodney would never have the means or the push to become the robot he became. It's poetic, it's heartbreaking, and it's the only time I've ever seen a children's movie justify an end-of-story dance party. Oh yeah, remember when Herb told his son he wanted to be a musician? Well, Rodney gives him that chance again. He gives him what I can only assume is a trumpet for things that don't have lungs, and tells him to play. The whole world is watching, and it's time for him to live his dream. And it's a little rusty, but he gets there.
Okay. Alright.
Oh, they give him red eyes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Okay.
And so Herb and Rodney, as father and son, dance their way into a happily ever after. So what have we learned? Well, the movie tells us everything we have to learn from pretty early on. It's pretty upfront in its message. Firstly, you can shine no matter what you're made of. No matter where you come from, you provide something to the world. You are a person living a life that has never been led before, and it's your duty to yourself to make it the best it can be. So don't be afraid to chase your dreams or follow your heart, because one person is all you need to start something great. But that's a pretty basic message. A lot of movies, especially children's movies, leave you with that sort of message. See a need, fill a need. That's the message the movie wants to leave you with, and it's one you don't see very often. So many movies are about one singular person, the audience surrogate, the chosen one, the one to put you in the story, but not Robots. Robots is about selflessness. Robots is about strength through community. Robots is about how it's not about you. You might disagree with that statement. You might think Rodney is the chosen one. He's the one that everyone rallies around, isn't he? But why is Rodney so special? What sets him apart? Well, I'd argue what makes Rodney so special is that he's one of the only characters in this movie that doesn't think about himself. Sure, he's setting out on his journey. He wants to make his dreams come true. He's pursuing his own goal. But why is Rodney such a threat? It's not because he's smart. He created life and nobody gave a shit. Bigweld is smart and he was bullied into submission. Rodney is so scary because he sees the world outside of himself, which is not an easy thing to do, especially in the case of dire circumstances like these. Living in a world in which you're not sure where your next meal is going to come from, where your next job is going to be, or even in some cases, if you're going to live to see another day, it is incredibly hard to step outside of yourself and imagine the identical struggles of someone right next to you. I can understand and empathize wholeheartedly with how most of these characters in this movie are too afraid of what's going on in their own lives to be able to empathize with another person. But Rodney does. Rodney prioritizes helping others over helping himself, and that is why he is so important. When people prioritize empathy over profit, that is when we become a threat. When people realize that we are stronger together than the powers that be, that is when we become a threat. When people realize that the system is not there to keep us out, but to shut them in, that is when we become a threat. I can think of no better example of these exploitative elites than what we saw in Hollywood after the series of strikes, and I'm sure that this was still going on in 2005, and the people that made this movie in Blue Sky Studios saw this going on firsthand. And it's a real shame they had to close down Blue Sky Studios because, oh my god, wait. Oh my god, they shut down Blue Sky Studios because they knew too much. Oh my god, they made a Marxist movie in 2005 and they shut them down in 2021 during the pandemic, a year in which the rich got richer, a year in which the poor got poorer, a year in which the need for universal healthcare was felt more than ever before this century, a year in which death affected marginalized and older communities more than ever before this century. And who shut them down? Disney. And I don't need to explain the link between the bourgeois and Disney to you, but Zephyr, I hear you worrying as I get a little bit more intense, but this seems like speculation. This seems like a little bit too convenient, don't you think? This seems like correlation, not causation. Well, I'll tell you this right now. What was the last movie that Blue Sky Studios ever released? I talked about it at the beginning of the video. It was Spies in Disguise, and I didn't see it because I didn't think it was gonna be good, but you know what else is in disguise? Robots in disguise. Transformers. Fender. Trans robots. This movie is about robots. It all comes back to robots. It's fine. I cracked the code. Oh my god!